And so this particular king didn't have any qualms about bringing David along until the other Philistine leaders saw him and said, what the world are you bringing him along for? This is going to be the perfect opportunity for him to get back in the good graces of Saul by turning on us in battle. Get rid of this guy. And so the leader, I don't know how you pronounce it for absolute sure, I will say Achish, but that's my best guess. In verse 9 of chapter 29 says, I know that you have been as pleasing in my eyes as an angel of God. Nevertheless, the Philistine commanders have said, he must not go up with us into battle. Now get up early along with your master's servants who have come with you, and leave in the morning as soon as it is light. Well, you think about male testosterone and men who are used to fighting, and they are geared up for battle. You don't just turn that off. So these guys were all of a sudden told, you can't go with us, we're sending you home, and you've already got your engine on go. That's a pretty, that's a deflating kind of thing. All of a sudden you're already kind of in a negative frame of mind, and you're having to go home and live with that kind of disappointment, and somebody doesn't approve of you. We all like to be liked. And so anyway, they get in this situation, and now they're going home. Well, the Lord had a very special surprise that he allowed to happen when they got home. It says, David and his men reached Ziklag on the third day. This is a 3-day march they're on now. We read this story, we know how it comes out, so it's almost like we don't quite get it sometimes. I feel like as I read this, I know how this one comes out. So, hey, David, hang on, it's going to be good. Don't worry about this. But David didn't know all this. His men didn't know. And so they got back there, and there was nothing but ashes. I mean, talk about being in a low place. You're doing your best to serve God. God has put his call on your life. You've laid down everything for him. You're on the run, and it looks like there's no place to go, and God has left you. You ever feel like that? But was God the author of this circumstance? Yes, he was. And what the devil intended as a time of great defeat for God's servant, God intended as a time of great victory. And I'll tell you, I need to remember this, and you need to remember it. There is no offensive that the devil can mount that God does not mean for our good. If we will put our hope and our trust in him and stand fast and recognize who our enemy is, close ranks and resist the devil and seek God, God will be with us. He will honor us. The devil will have to be put on the run, and we will come out on top. That doesn't mean there won't be a whole lot of things to go through on the way. One thing that Paul, let's jump back to the New Testament for a second. Paul was writing to Timothy about the ministry. Well, Paul was an expert at what it takes. He knows that if you're going to be effective, the devil is going to have his guns trained on you. There's no way to get out and be in the fight and actually be a threat to the devil without him really turning all his forces loose on you. So that, he knew that he had to trust in God in desperate situations. But his advice to Timothy was very simple. He said, bear hardness. Endure hardness, he says, as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. And I sense that need in my own life. Many times, we're so quick to complain. Oh, God, my toe hurts. How can I serve you? A little exaggeration, but not so much. We are so quick to make excuses and to sort of get disengaged when God is wanting to focus our attention. I believe God wants to use this church. I believe that some of the things that are going on right now are because the devil is upset and he is afraid. Because there are people here who are looking to God and desiring to be effective as a church. we can have a comfortable little church. We can come here and congratulate ourselves with our pretty little sermons and pretty little singing and go home and accomplish nothing if we want to. But I'm not satisfied with that. I don't believe God is either. This is a time for God's people to be awake and alert and to recognize what's going on in your life and in the church so that we don't get pulled into all of Satan's tricks. Anyway, here they are. The Amalekites. You remember the Amalekites? Saul was supposed to take care of business a long time ago. He didn't do it. Here they show up again. The Amalekites. They were just a bunch of lawless people who went around just killing people, raiding their stuff. Now the Amalekites had raided the Negev and Ziklag. The Negev is the part, down, what do they call that today? Anyway, it's the desert between Israel and Egypt. It's down in that portion, in the southern part of Palestine there. And by the way, I understand the word Palestine is related to the Philistines. There is a linguistic connection. So it's interesting to make that connection. But anyway, they come back, and the Amalekites had attacked Ziklag and burned it and had taken captive the women and all who were in it, both young and old. They killed none of them, but carried them off as they went on their way. Anybody see the goodness of God in that? These were lawless, demon-driven people. There's nothing that was stood in their way normally, or just killing people. But God had a greater plan. God saw to it that his people were preserved in a desperate situation. Now, of course, at this time, neither David nor any of his men had a clue what was going on. And they did exactly what you and I would have done. So David and his men wept aloud. That must have been something to see. 600 men just bawling their eyes out. And it says they wept aloud until they had no strength left to weep. Have you ever been like that? Have you ever wept to the point where you just, I can't cry anymore. I can't even cry anymore. It's so bad. They were in a terrible low place. But who put them in that place? Who really put them in that place? God did, didn't he? Did he do it because he was mad at them? Because he hated them? No. This was part of the judgment upon his people. And judgment was not a negative thing. This was a trying. Let's put it that way. That'd be a better word. This was a trying of his people. This was a teaching situation. This was one of those teaching opportunities. And I believe it should be one for us as well. And not only that, what happens when people are under pressure? What do they usually do? Complain like heck. They just, the mouth starts getting pretty negative, doesn't it? And all of a sudden, fingers start getting pointed. It's your fault. David, if you hadn't brought us here, none of this would have happened, David. It's your fault. We followed you. We thought you were God's man, and here we are. We've lost everything, and there's no hope. And here were all these people following David. At this moment of pressure, how do they react? Well, here's what we need to do. We need to stone David. We need to take care of him. He's the one that's to blame. That's the strategy of the enemy, isn't it?